budgetary measures were predominantly defensive measures rather than going on the offensive in terms of the economy. And the reason why we had to do that was for a number of reasons. One, government faced serious financing challenges. That is, that as our economy tightened, and as access to capital and finance became a lot more challenging and more expensive, government had to find ways of relying on its own resources. That's the first thing. The second thing, of course, in the context of that, the complaint was that government was relying too heavily on the central bank, the NIS, and others. In fact, I'm sure you would have heard the discourse relative to the quote-unquote printing of money by the central bank. Now, in that context, it would be difficult for government to just overnight come up with the type of financing required at the type of costs that would be reasonable enough to finance government's deficit. Because recall, whenever there's a deficit, that is a gap between what government is bringing in revenue and what it is expending on the various goods and services that we provide to the population, education, transport, health, and so forth and so on, government has to either increase its revenue through various means, taxation being one, or it has to borrow those resources. Now, if you continue to borrow, then you know what will happen. Your debt levels will increase. And a lot of that, because you're borrowing to do recurrent expenditures, is short-term debt. And in the context of where the Barbados economy is, the short-term debt tends to be a little bit more expensive. People will lend shorter because there's less risk. If you would feel a little more comfortable if the time frame between when you lend somebody money and when you can get repaid is shorter in a challenged circumstance than if you lend on the longer end, have to wait longer, and then something happens and you can't get your money back. Not that in our context something will happen, but that's how risk assessors would look at it. So government had a choice. We either could continue to have to rely on central bank printing of money or central bank financing of the deficit, which of course has its own challenges in itself, given that we operate a fixed exchange rate regime, and it is not a healthy state of affairs to have that continue for any inordinate period of time, even though in some circumstances it is required, or to make certain adjustments both on the taxation side or on the expenditure side. In that budget, we chose to do a bit of both. One of the reasons we maintained with such a heavy set budget as well was to try to contain the demand for foreign exchange. I think we've been able to do that, and we've been very successful in doing that, especially when we consider the fact that oil prices have been creeping up. They went as far as down below $48 a barrel. The recent figures I have heard only a few days ago is at $70 a barrel. So once that increases, we import quite a bit of fuel, and we pay pretty heavily for it. So the fact that we've been able to maintain and not totally bottom out where foreign exchange is concerned, I think is as a direct result of the fact of the measures that we have implemented. So in that context, they're doing the job which they're supposed to do.